before
I
before
know
the
Yeah.
live stream
we always
starts.
seem to have some sort of like really good laugh moment right as the live stream is starting. But
That last minute.
yeah. Well, today is Saturday, January 18th at 9 a.m. on the dot. Good job, Danny. Uh,
Can you believe how fast January's flying by? Does
Oh,
anybody else
dude.
feel that?
yeah.
God, it's always so fast, dude. Every time
It's
goes by
like
way too quick.
I feel like January is that month where you're just trying to recover from like the 3 or 4 previous months of holidays. Like
It's so
once
much
you hit
stress, dude.
Halloween, it's like the year
Yeah.
is done. Like it's over.
Yeah.
You're just holidays and like
Nobody cares about
bullshit.
anything
Yeah.
else like that they're
Yeah. Yeah.
doing. Like,
Nobody
Cool.
give me,
Let's
doing
yeah,
get
any
into
just,
work.
that
but
and
Thanksgiving's in like 3 weeks. I gotta
spend
make this
money.
pie
Yeah.
and get out
Like
there for
that's
Black
it.
Friday.
So yeah, I mean now it's like, the past couple of weeks I've just been like in recovery mode, trying to get back on track, get all my
Yeah.
goals in place, start knocking out all those things I should have done the past month.
Tell me about it, right?
But yeah.
Mhm.
Anyway, today we have a pretty cool topic. I think this is a great one for anybody in the
Everybody.
group who is brand new. I mean, really anybody who wants to make money. And let's be real. I mean,
I would
we were
actually
talking about
also,
this. Go ahead.
I would go say it's important for everybody, I think, because there's also use cases where it's going to be the most relevant and best
Oh yeah,
choice, you know?
for
Yeah.
sure. Um, yeah. So we were talking about this before we actually got on, and is that most people who get into web development are here, like, unfortunately, because of the money, right? Because I would be willing to bet if web developers got paid like teachers did, that not many people would want to be web developers, right?
No.
And so that's awesome, right? There's lots of money and opportunity. However, I think people underestimate how much work is involved to become a skilled web developer, one that can go out and get a job at, say, Google or Facebook or whatever, right? But um, that doesn't mean that you can't be successful on your own. And I think that's where this comes from. I mean, one of the first things that I did when we were all in boot camp is I actually went out and found a local business, a construction company who needed a website. And I rebuilt their website and charged them like $2,500 to do it. It took me probably easily like less than a week, maybe like 3 days to build the whole thing. Once I got like the content and stuff from them. And so this is a really good way for you to not only make money from the very beginning as a web developer, but also improve your skills. Go ahead, Randall.
Yeah.
And if you do the math behind that, you said you made 2,500 bucks in 3 days. So you
Yeah.
It's
could
good.
essentially do that 100 plus times per year, which would be
Yep.
$250,000 a year if you
Easily.
just
Yeah.
did that.
Yeah.
And that's like me alone, right? If I had a team, like if I built that into like something where I had other web
People looking for
developers
getting the
and
jobs or
like
something.
yeah, or like
Yeah.
salespeople, like reaching out to people. I mean, you could really build a 6, 7 figure business doing that pretty
It's
easily.
funny because people always focus on like these, companies like Google and Apple, but there's so much work out there because there's everybody needs this. Anybody that has a business, they need a website. And,
Yeah,
like, everybody, people have ideas, so there's always going to be demand for it.
yeah. So really what I wanted to do today was like talk about how, let's say, like, let's pretend for a second that the three of us are brand new again. We know nothing about web development. How would, and I'm asking you guys, but I'll answer too, but how would you go about starting to do this? Right? Like what would you do first? And if you want, I'm happy to share sort of like what I
I'll
would do
go.
or my first
Well,
step. Go ahead.
I mean, I'd say my first step probably would be to start looking. First, I'd go online and get familiar with some of the resources out there, like either Squarespace or something like that. Wix, so one of
Yeah.
these places that lets you do, low code
Low
solutions to
code
make
solution.
websites. Yeah. And
There's a
then
lot of them. I
there's a
personally like
ton.
Squarespace a
I like
lot.
Squarespace too. It's
Yeah.
easy, and they're so easy because it's like drag and drop. And then, you also,
Yeah.
I think the cool thing is you get to learn about design though and how things work even by
Yeah.
doing that, right? Then I'd start looking locally. Look for like niche companies, like, construction's a good one, medical, things like
Yeah.
that, where it's privately owned that you can go out and reach out to them directly and then start a conversation.
Yeah, definitely.
Especially look for ones that have bad websites, run the tests, see ones that have bad like SEO, stuff like that that you can help them with.
Yeah. Go ahead, Randall.
Yeah, I
What can I
think,
say?
but I would even say before looking at Squarespace or any of these low code solutions, start selling. So
Yeah.
that's kind of like the first step. Just get out there and get a customer. Get one customer first, and then the
Yeah.
next one, and the next one, and the next one. Because the hardest one you'll ever get is the first one, because you lack the confidence. You've never done it before. It's going to be scary, intimidating, all these other things. And so you just get like I remember back in the day when I was learning SEO, all they talked about, and this was like back in 2012 or something like that, all they talked
Yeah. A
about was
while
getting your
ago.
first client. Everybody
Yeah.
wanted
Yeah.
to know exactly how to do it. Everybody wanted, but how do I build the websites? How do I do this? How do I do that? And they're like, just get a client. And they're like, no, no, no. But what happened when I get the client? Like they're gonna ask me this, and then what do I do that? And it's just go get the client. Because you can't predict this stuff in advance. So
And yeah,
get the
Yeah.
I
client first, and then you can figure it all out afterwards.
no, I was gonna say
Yeah. I
it's like
agree.
that's like some of the best advice too, is you need that first, and that gets you that once you get one, all those fears go away. Because even if it's
Yeah.
hard, even if it doesn't go perfectly, you still know you can do it, and like
Yeah.
that's the important thing.
I want to answer two things. So one, I totally agree with you on the like get your client first. So before actually doing this live stream, I wanted to see like I have it in my mind because I've done this before, but I wanted to see I went on ChatGPT and I was like, what would you do if you were starting over and you want to start like a low code website solution? And it said all these things like go out and find a platform like Squarespace and like explore the platform, build yourself a portfolio, build an agency site,
No, you
like
don't need to do
build a
all
couple of portfolio
that.
projects. And that sounds great, right? And one of the things about ChatGPT is like it will give you the most neutral answer, like the answer that everyone would generally do.
Yeah.
And so that's what most people would do. But I can already see through that because, like myself, and I know you guys see this as just being experienced in web development and just in life, is that if you go that route, you're going to basically build walls between you and actually landing a client. Like because it's
Well, there's going
scary,
to be all
right?
these,
Like
and there's going to
selling
be all these
this,
goals that can procrastinate, right? It's like, well, I
right?
got to do that first. I got to build my
Right.
portfolio
I
system.
gotta
Oh,
I
I got
gotta
to
learn
build the agency
Squarespace,
place.
then I gotta
Yeah.
And
build the
it
site, then I gotta do this. And the reality is like at the end of the day, a customer doesn't care about any of that. They care about can you make me a website that brings more people in the door? That's generally like all that
And,
a business owner really cares about. And so those things are great, but again, like just to reinforce your point, is getting that first client will push you through all those things way faster, and
you'll
you
learn
can
it
do
faster
those at the
too.
same time. Yeah,
You'll learn it faster too. The other thing too, I think, is that like these technologies are made to be used by small business owners who know nothing about technology. So if you care
yeah,
about tech, if you like it, if you even know a little bit about it and know how to use the internet, you'll make a better site than them.
yeah.
Like,
Uh,
I mean, that's the
in the
truth.
comments here, Glitz wrote, I love that name, Glitz.
That's a good
Um,
name.
Glitz wrote, how do you find that lead the local construction company? So that's a great question. There's a lot of different ways to find leads, and I'd love to go into that. And we can in a second here. The way that I found that one is through my own personal network. I
Yeah.
Once I was in the boot camp, I declared myself a web developer, which I implore you to do today. Like you
Yeah.
are now a web developer. It's just something that you have in your mind. Nobody ever grants that to you. So grant it to yourself. You're a web developer. And then you just tell everybody that you know, this is what I'm
Yeah.
doing now. I'm a web developer. And guess what happened? I was with a friend. I said, hey, I'm doing this boot camp. I'm a web developer. I'm building websites. If you know anybody that needs a website. And he's like, yeah, actually, my friend has a construction company that needs a website right now. Let me put you in contact with him. Put me in contact with him. And then literally like within a week, he had sent me a check and we were good to go. And I
Well,
built the
that's
whole
the
thing
best
for
too,
him.
because you're gonna find people that need it. And on top of that too, I think if you're in your own network, the other good thing is like if you're really nervous, you can do one for somebody you know first. If you have
Yeah.
to for practice, make that makes the first job a little easier too. If you are like super anxious about it, you still get the
Yeah.
experience of working with a client, talking to them, and figuring out what they want and need.
Yeah.
So
Of
there are a
course.
couple of things I want to mention. So one would be in your daily life, stuff that you go and do. Like you go to the dry cleaner, you go to some restaurant, you go to
Hmm.
whatever, you're browsing the web looking for something and you see a terrible website. All of these are opportunities to make websites for them. So
Hmm.
those are all people that you can approach when you're talking to them. People always ask what you're doing. Like you said, Russ, I'm a web developer. And then they'll be like,
Yeah.
oh, so how much is it for a website? And you say, well, let's discuss what you're looking for. Uh,
Yeah.
But another thing that I wanted to mention, well, I forgot it, so my age is catching up
Okay.
with me.
It's
I
okay.
know, right?
You'll
Lack
remember
of
it because
sleep
I'm
and
gonna go
age.
into like other ways that you can actually find clients and suggestions that I have. Because what you said is 100% on
Mm.
point. I mean, we do stuff all day. Go ahead, because it came back
Okay.
to you. Go.
Yeah, so it came back. So here's the thing. Like I hear people who are watching this and they're like, yeah, but if ChatGPT says I need a portfolio website and I need some
Yeah.
examples, what's going to happen when I'm talking with that client and they're like, well, do you have an example of anything you've done?
Hmm.
And this is something that I did back with SEO back in the day. I was like, hey, listen, tell you what, I'll do the work, and if it's up to your standards, I'll charge you $2,000. You'll pay $2,000, $2,500, something like that. If it's not good, you pay me nothing. And
Yeah.
then I would do it, and I would blow them out of the park because
Yep.
you're going
Yeah.
to do it. They'll see it and they'll be like, oh my gosh, this is incredible, and so they'll
Yeah.
pay you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, that's a very easy way to totally lower the bar to entry. And you can do
Yeah.
this not just for your first client, you can do it for any client you want because, like, imagine the next time you go literally anywhere. I mean, I know you guys like go out to stores, right? Look at their website. And when you go there, say, hey, I'm a local web developer. I'd love to rebuild your website. I'll do it completely free. If you love it, you pay me this amount. If not, no problem. Like, wash our hands and part ways and no big deal. Right.
Yeah.
And of course, you don't give them the website if they don't pay for
Yeah.
it. Like,
That's
that's
But
a
but
cool
exactly.
what you
part.
can
Yeah.
do is you can screenshot it and add it to your portfolio, or you
Totally.
can keep
Yeah.
it and use it for your portfolio, but just not for them.
Yeah.
Yeah. An
I have a
examples
few
like
other suggestions of ways to actually go out and find your first customer. Obviously, what you said is huge, right? Like anywhere that you go, any person that you talk to, every conversation that you have is an opportunity to find a new client. Like
that's what
everybody
networking
that you
is.
talk to.
Oh,
Yeah,
That
here's an
that's
literally,
literally
idea.
yep,
what
the
network.
definition. Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
that was my next one. So if you join the Web Dev Incubator, you get a free "Yes, I'm a web developer" Code Noobs shirt
Looks very
that
nice.
you can sport wherever you want, right?
Dude, and
And we
people
are
all the time
actually,
when you're wearing this, people all the time are like, "Oh, really? You make websites?"
yeah, dude,
I
it's
have a
crazy.
website
Like
idea. Yeah.
just saying to people I'm a web developer, they're like, oh, wow. Because I mean, it's funny. We've seen this
There's a
so
lot of
many times
entrepreneurs though out there,
inside.
and and like
Well,
everybody
yeah,
needs.
but think about how many times inside the web dev incubator we've been having a conversation about like how do I get my first client? And we're literally like, hey, have you guys asked like your friends and family? And then they're like, yeah, actually, I have like three people who've already asked me for a website. It happens all the time,
Yeah.
right? It's everybody needs a website, right? And I think this is one of the things is a lot of people come into software development and they're like, I want to learn C or Java or like Go or Rust or something, and they want to do something cool like develop, you know, I don't know, mobile apps or software for Starbucks
Because it
or
sounds slick, right?
Web3, blockchains, whatever, right? But at the end of the day, like every person, pretty much every person in the world has an email address. And now we're getting to the point where like most people almost have a website,
Yeah.
right? Like, especially, like, I think it's more now than ever because there's so many more entrepreneurs now than there ever was. Like, think about how many entrepreneurs came out of just TikTok,
Yeah.
right? People who have TikTok businesses need websites. There's a great one. I mean, for the next day or two, go on TikTok and find people who are selling something that don't have a website. They'll probably
Yeah.
want to buy one, right?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I think that's one. Everywhere that you go, every person that you talk to is an opportunity. Your local businesses are generally the best place to start too, because there's a competitive advantage of saying, I am local. Like I live in the same town as you.
Well, especially with
People love
local
that.
business too.
Yes.
Yeah, because
Because
they,
you're
I mean,
approachable, you're like an actual person, you're not some dude in a faraway country. You are a human being and you understand their own life challenges of just being like where you are. Like where I live, it's Florida, so it's warm all the time. Where other people live, it's cold. That's like a challenge that just living in different places, you have like a certain what I don't know what the word is for it, but like appreciation for other people who live around you, right? And
well,
so
you understand the community, right? And I think
yeah,
that's also, you're
exactly. It's like a
also,
community thing.
And new business, and especially local businesses, like the idea of keeping money within the community too. That's the whole idea,
Yeah.
right? You're enriching the community. So they're much more likely to work with somebody that they can work with that's here than some, nondescript, vague entity that exists out there that's going to be harder to interact with, harder, to answer questions, stuff like that. So yeah, there's a huge
Yeah.
Plus,
benefit there.
Plus, if people start to know you as the local web developer, you're going to get so much
Yeah.
business from that. Like back in the
Yeah.
day, I used to do real estate wholesaling, buying and selling houses at a discount. And so we would have these meetings, and there was like one or two dudes who were accountants and one or two dudes
Hmm.
who were lawyers that would show up to all the meetings. And literally, they got everyone's business because they were
Yeah.
the accountant and the lawyer that people knew who knew about real estate. And
Yeah.
it's the same thing with web development. If you start going to local events with businesses and you're the web developer, everyone's going to go to you for web development.
Yeah. And that was actually going to be my next point, which is like you already have interests of your own, right? Outside of web development, hobbies, past jobs, anything that you've ever been involved with is a great opportunity to leverage, right? Because you have this specific knowledge that all other web developers don't. So if you like one of our students, Chris, is really into pickleball, right? So he has a competitive advantage with approaching maybe a pickleball club or a pickleball court, or pickleball facility and being like, hey, I love
Or
playing
whatever they call
pickleball.
pickleball
Yeah,
things.
wherever they do that. He's like, you can say, hey, I love playing pickleball. I'm here every week. I see that you guys have a website, but I'm a web developer and I can definitely improve your website, make it easier for the patrons to like sign up or whatever it is. And you have a competitive advantage because every other web developer out there is not going to be a pickleball player, or most of them are not, right? So I think that's definitely a huge one. Like leverage anything that you already have. And then of course you just expand from there. Like once you have a couple clients, those clients are going to recommend you to other clients. I think your point with like the real estate groups is great. Like if you have any group that you go to. And then the last one I was going to say is just your local chamber of commerce. Like those are the local business owners. So why
Yeah.
not just join that and then go there and be like, I'm a local web developer. It's the same thing. Like there's not going to be 30 web developers at the chamber of
No.
commerce. There might be one other, you know? Go ahead, Randall.
Okay, so what do you say to the people watching this who are like, but that's, like I don't know anything about web
But that's
development. I
hard.
don't know HTML. I don't know CSS. I don't know
Mhm.
JavaScript. I don't know React. How am I supposed to do this? Why go with low code as opposed to actually doing custom web development? When would you actually need to do custom web development?
Yeah. Um, I think
I
that's a
think
great
actually,
one.
yeah, I was gonna
Go
say,
ahead.
I think
Go ahead, Danny.
low code's actually a good solution in a lot of cases, and it's important, I think, for even web developers that want to do act like they want to code like with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, React, whatever. It's good to also understand that those things exist because a lot of these small businesses, they're gonna need to update content, right? They're gonna need to
Yeah.
change things, and they might pay you for that. That's true, but they might also want an easy way to access the site. They might not have a ton of money to invest in it because a custom site's gonna cost more.
Yeah.
In those cases, a Squarespace site is great and it works perfect for them.
Yeah.
And then they can access it. You can also charge them for upkeep if you want, if they're down for that, and then you make the changes yourself. But ultimately it's an easy way for them to also interact with it. And it makes it, depending on, their needs, that might be the right solution. And that's your job to know. So I think that's an important part of it.
Yeah. A lot of these low code sites operate on sort of a tiered system where, you can, there's like memberships, right? And obviously your your client is the one who's going to be paying for this monthly membership for whatever low code solution you use. That's just part of the deal. But it's pretty cheap. It's like, $20 to $50 a
Yeah.
month, maybe. But there's tiers, right? So the lowest tier is just going to be like basic things. And then as you go up, you unlock more features. And so I think for most local businesses, you can easily get away with low code solutions because it's not a web app. It's just a website, which means like they're just showing mostly static content. Maybe they have a contact form. Maybe you need
Yeah.
to integrate like a Calendly or a Google Calendar or some other smaller integrations, which you can do with JavaScript. So I think for 99% of local businesses, for just their own website, you can get away with any of these low code solutions. If they're trying to build something more sophisticated where users can like authenticate and sign in and things like that, then you're going to the point of custom development. But in terms of like the smaller, like low code stuff, even if you have to, um, use like a third party like Google Maps or something like that and integrate that in there. Number one, it's not difficult. They give you a lot of tutorials. You can look them up on YouTube. And number two, you have this amazing, amazing tool, which people haven't had for years, that makes your life as a developer incredibly easy. And that's AI. Like you can literally just go on ChatGPT and be like, I'm using Squarespace. I'm trying to, embed a Google map in the page. How do I do it? And it will like give you steps of how to do that better than what you could find probably anywhere, right? So like
Better
Yeah.
than Stack
you don't
Overflow?
have
No way.
Yeah, yeah, right.
like I mean at this point you really don't have an excuse for not making money as a web developer except for like I'm sorry but I'm going to say it, you're lazy, right? Like you don't have an excuse. It's just you have to go out and take action. And I think that's one of the hardest things
That's
to
the
do
hardest part for everybody, though, I think, is
is you
taking
just got to
action.
go out there and take action. And I'll tell you this because I have probably in excess of like 10 years of sales experience. Sales is scary in the beginning. There's a lot of fear around it because you're like, this person's going to hate me for the rest of my life because I cold called them or whatever. Like you make these stories up in your mind. Most people that you talk to will forget about you about 5 minutes after they talk to you. So don't worry about that, right? Sales gets easier as you do it more frequently, but you have to take that action. So start today. Once we finish this call, go out to your local businesses, call a local business and say, hey, I'm a web developer. I see that your website is lacking this or that, or I can improve it in this way. Um, and then see if you can get a client that way. Go ahead, Randall. After you
Yeah.
do that, I have a suggestion for some other things of how to
Well,
actually approach that client, but I think that's
yeah,
probably where you're going.
here's
Okay.
another even easier way to
Mm-hmm.
get your first client. So everybody who's a friend or a family member, just reach
Yeah.
out to them and be like, "Hey, listen, I'm looking to get my first web development client. Do you know anybody
Mhm.
who needs a website?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And
And you could
if they
even
say
say,
yes, there you go. You have a client. If they
you could
say
even
no,
say,
just
I'll
say,
give
"Hey,
you
keep."
10% of whatever I make
Yeah.
Yeah.
to sweeten the deal. Like, hey, friends and family, if you can find me a client, I'll give you 10% and you don't have to do anything. You just refer them.
Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
that would be a way to keep the deals coming
Finder's
in
fee.
forever.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
let everyone you know that you're paying 10% just to refer people to you, you'll have a ton of clients.
Yeah. For any
Yeah.
job you get. Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, I'm going to give you another strategy that has worked for me, and it's also worked for one of our students inside the incubator. His name's Charles. I'm not sure if he's watching today, but um, Charles basically, we did a session, one of our code along sessions, where we were walking Charles like through how to approach a business owner to basically explain to them like, hey, I want to improve your website. And we discussed this strategy, which is simple and you can expand on it as much as you want, but there's really two main parts of it. Number one is there's something built into every Google browser and Brave browser. It's called
And Edge.
Lighthouse.
Edge also has it.
Edge has
Yeah.
it? Okay.
Any Chromium-based browser, I think, now has it.
Yeah. So it's called Lighthouse, and it's actually a really cool feature because it's made by Google, and what Lighthouse does is it does a analysis of a website and determines like things that are actually making the website perform worse. So it'll say like, hey, there's large images or there's blocking JavaScript or something like
A
that.
whole bunch of redirects or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
Redirects, yeah. So it's basically giving you suggestions of ways that you can actually improve your website, right?
And
So
it gives you nice scores too that are very
yeah,
clear, you know.
yep. So this is literally the strategy that we gave Charles, and I probably shouldn't be giving it in here, but it's okay. I appreciate you guys in here. So here goes. So what you do is you use one of two softwares. There's one called OBS, or there's another one that's like a browser-based software called Loom, Loom. And basically, they're just recording software. So you can record yourself. So you record a quick, like 2 to 3 minute recording of yourself walking through their website, showing off their Lighthouse score, which for most websites, especially local business websites, they're going to score pretty low. So
Yeah.
immediately you can see, like, hey, your score is low. Now, that that part alone is like the fear factor, right? It's a scary part for business owners, but they don't care about a lighthouse score. They care about customers. They care about making more money. So what you have to do is translate that for them in the conversation that you're having. So the whole point of this call is to basically walk through their website, show them places where they could improve, where they're losing customers, where things are unclear, they the style is bad, whatever, and then also talk about how their lighthouse score is bad and how these things are affecting their website. And then your job is to translate that into how does that affect you as a business owner with, customers leaving or the customer experience, right?
I just wanted to, can I ask them
Go
real
ahead.
quick? Just because,
Yeah,
like, I know a lot of people too are like, well, if I haven't coded a lot, how do I know, right, what this stuff is? Well,
sure.
you use the web all the time. So all of
Right.
you should know, right, what makes a site easy to read, what makes it
Yeah.
clear and easy to follow. Like, we all know if there's huge block text, like a ton of text, nobody reads all
Yeah.
of it, right? Things like
Yeah.
that are easy to identify and easy to sort of fix if you know what you're doing. So just look through the site carefully, use Lighthouse, and you'll get a really good understanding, right, of what's wrong with this site.
Yeah. And if you haven't used the web a lot, which is very unlikely, but if you haven't, go to Squarespace and they have a ton of templates, which are actually many of them are branded towards specific businesses. So if you want some businesses to target in the beginning, just target the ones that they already have templates for, because that just makes your job way easier. But look at the templates and see like what makes this template look so much better than the customer's website.
Yeah.
Usually it's a lot of like design things and just functionality, or things are just not working correctly. Also, if you open the console, which you have to do to access the lighthouse, a lot of times you'll see errors and warnings on their website. You can show them all that stuff. Like basically, you want to show them two things: that you know what you're doing, you have authority, and that you can help them get more customers. That's really
Yeah.
all you need to do to get to really sell to a local business owner. And if at that point, like they aren't interested in buying, then they're just not a customer. Like they're just not somebody who's interested in getting more customers or improving their business. So it's not worth your time. You move on to the next person.
Do you know what I love about this method too? Is that you're doing a recording, you can post it on YouTube, you can send them the link, like unlist it, and just send them the link or something. You don't have to interact directly right away. It gives you a
Yeah.
way to sort of start that conversation with the business that's no fear. You just,
Yeah.
here's this thing I
And
made. If you're interested, awesome. Here's how you can contact me. If not, no
yep.
worries, no
Yep.
big
And
deal.
you can just email a link to that video or email, like host it on YouTube and email them a link and say,
Yeah.
hey, so and so, my name is whatever. I'm a web developer. I made you this quick video to show you ways that I can improve your website. Let me know if you're interested in working.
Yeah.
Super easy. Doesn't have to be anything crazy. It's literally that easy. And you just repeat that over and over and over, and you'll find a client. Like if you do
Yeah.
that 100 times, I guarantee you will get one client.
Yeah.
Guaranteed. Like there's no doubt in my mind that you will.
And you can
I
make
want
it,
to
you can
mention
make
this
those
too
videos pretty
because
much in a day.
yeah, oh, you could make them. You could make 20 of them. Yeah, like in a day, at least. Um, I want to mention this too because we didn't even say it, but Charles did this, right?
And got
Charles
a
is
job.
here. Yeah, and
Yeah.
he got a job offer from
Yeah.
like he's like, I want to have you on the team part time. So like
Yeah.
think about that. Like imagine that you're just going out and putting yourself out there, and the first person that you even contact is like, you know what, I don't want you to work on it, I want you to work for me. Like here's a job as a developer. Like this is literally what Charles was looking for. And his I'm assuming it's like one of the first ones that he reached out to. And I know that he put a lot of thought into this and researched it, and he already knew um,
The business and stuff. He
the
know he's interested
business.
in the business.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he had interest, so it's a prior hobby of his. But look at how that just separated him from everyone else. Like that guy was like, I'm never going to find another web developer who knows my business this well. Like why would I
Also,
pass up this opportunity?
Also, keep in mind, these business owners probably get emails all the time from companies overseas and stuff. We can make
Yeah.
you a website, great
Yeah.
website, blah, blah, blah. None of them are going to include that personal touch where you can see the
No.
person talking directly to you, explaining what's wrong with it, offering up. You're offering free advice, basically, right? But that
Yep.
sets you up as that authority, and you're also starting that connection, like they can see you. They know who you are. It's not this mysterious, entity that's trying to reach out to them to take their money and scam them.
Yeah. Um yeah, totally. So
So we spent 30 minutes so far, and we really haven't touched on anything other than the sales. But I think that's important because that's pretty much all you need to
Yeah,
do in order to
that's it.
have your own web development company, in order to freelance in web development. Because if you can do the
yeah,
sales, figuring out how to build a website on Squarespace or something like that is a no-brainer. Like they
yeah.
have
I mean,
tons of tutorials,
We don't need to
easy.
walk through
just to
that.
prove that to you too, like to prove that to everybody, the whole purpose of Squarespace is to make building a website approachable to business
Everybody.
owners. Yeah,
Yeah,
to
to everyone.
everybody. So like you already have way more knowledge, even if you're just starting in web development, just because you have interest in this, you already have way more knowledge than the average user of Squarespace. So
Yeah.
you're going to be able to do it. The only other thing that I really wanted to talk about was what do you do after that in terms of like contracts? Because I think that's the next thing that people are going to ask. Like, what do I do about proposal, contracts, um, delivery, things like that? And I'm gonna answer that, and you guys can too. But I'm gonna say this: when you're starting out, just make it as simple as possible.
Yeah.
Make a simple contract that says uh, you want to be clear with like exactly what you are doing and are not doing. One of the things that I've seen and we've seen in the group and we've talked to people about a lot is that once you become somebody's web developer, they now think that you're like their IT guy, right? So
Yeah.
like they're going to start contacting you with anything and everything like, "Hey, my printer's broken," or whatever it is. So you have to make it very clear like I am building your website and that's it. And anything else is charged at a rate of 150 an hour or whatever you want to charge as a developer rate. Um, but you want to make sure of that. And the other thing is you are going to want to set up like a couple meetings with them. So like obviously the first meeting to discuss what the website's going to look like, the content, the logos, getting all that information. And then you might want to have like one or two maybe follow-up meetings throughout the development process before you actually deliver. And so you
I,
really want to clearly define those and make sure that you set timelines because people will waste your time. I've had
yeah.
clients where they're like, "Hey, let's jump on a weekly call." And I'm like, this was long time ago. And I was like, okay. And then that call turned into like an hour and a half every week. And I'm like, you're I'm literally not making money now because I'm just sitting here explaining to you how web development works instead of actually doing it. So
And
just
it's not
be
your
clear
job.
with them.
Yeah.
Yeah. The proposal doesn't have to be anything crazy, especially because you're not charging these people
A ton of money.
$20,000, $30,000 to build a website. You're charging them $1,000 to $2,000 most.
I also want to make a suggestion about that. When you meet them for the first time too, and you're explaining, the good thing to do is find a couple of sites that you like that you think would work as example sites that you can show them, like, or ask them like, what sites do you really like? Do you think work well for design? That can give you a good idea too of like what their eye is looking for. And then you can go from there too for finding a good template for that.
And
Yeah.
you can find their local competition, and you can say, what do
Yeah.
you like about their
Yeah.
websites? What don't you like about their websites?
Yeah. That's a great one too. I know we used to do that with SEO where we're like, pull up their competitor and be like, look at their lighthouse score. Look at all the ways that they are getting clients. Look how nice their website looks. Look how little text they have on their website. Look at how they're
Yeah.
using pictures to paint images, things like that. So I just wanted to call out Glitz and say, I don't know if you're a guy or a girl, but good for you, man or woman. Like they said, I'm pumped, fellas. I'm going to call through my local chamber of commerce and find some businesses that need sites.
Do it.
Amazing. Like take
Yeah, do
action.
that.
I mean, if there's one thing that you should take out of today's live stream is the best thing you can do is take action. Like take aggressive action as
Yeah,
much as you can do. Like contact as many businesses because it's a numbers game, right?
it
It's
is.
there's always going to be websites. There's always going to be people that need websites. There's always new businesses. There's websites get crappy over time. Like you can see an old business that has a
Yeah.
website still up from 1992 or whatever. It doesn't look the same as today's websites, right? So this is a industry that's never going to go away unless the internet disappears. And so you just got to
Yeah.
keep contacting people. Go ahead, Randall. I'm
And
calling on you.
just think about how this looks in a couple years while you're doing this and learning the more technical web
Mm-hmm.
development, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. By the time you get to the job to the part where you're looking for a job and you apply for that company, they're going to be like, "What's your experience?" "Oh, well, the past couple years I've been doing freelance web development. I've built at this point about
30
100
sites.
websites.
Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. And they'll be like,
I mean,
what? 100 websites? Everybody
yeah,
else just graduated a boot camp or from university and
yeah,
doesn't even have a completed project.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to say two things. Like, you'd be surprised at how much people invest in education without actually doing anything. I've
Yeah.
had conversations with people, like action calls, where I've been coaching people who are interested in joining the incubator. And in particular, there was one person I talked to. They went through a boot camp, a university degree, and some other certification. I forget what it was. And the first question I asked them is like, "What have you built?" Because they're having trouble finding a job. And I was like, "What have
Yeah.
you built? Like, you've have all these certifications. What have you built on your own?" And they were like, "Well, nothing." I was like, "Well, that's the number one problem. Is like
Yeah.
you're basically asking some business owner to take a huge risk on you just because you have some certifications. Like, um, you know, the reality is like business owners don't like taking big risks, especially when it costs them a lot of money. So if you can say like, "Hey, I built like this and this and this and this," that looks amazing,
It
right?
also shows the initiative, that you have the initiative, that you're willing to take risks, and that you're willing to solve problems. I mean, that's what
Yeah.
it shows.
And I want to say this too is like I learned a lot of web development, like this process I personally did because uh, Randall and myself got started in SEO. We got started doing search engine optimization and selling that to companies. And
And
part of
building
that
hundreds of
process
websites doing
is
it.
building
Yeah.
tons of websites, right?
Yeah.
And so we got really good at building websites on
WordPress.
Squarespace, on WordPress, on all these
Yeah.
low code solutions. Cause then I was like, I don't need to know how to code a website. I didn't know at that time, I literally didn't know like how CSS worked. It was like a mystery to me. I was like, wow,
Yeah.
this thing is so cool. Um, but the truth is, over time of doing that, I learned actually so much from low code because it's not no code, right? These solutions are not no code, they're low code. So you can build a website without any code, but you can also add code or edit code or change code. And you're going to see like you're going to have a customer, the last one that I had that I did this for, he was like, "Can you add this and that?" And I was like, "Squarespace doesn't let me do that, but I can because I understand how JavaScript works and I can do that for you."
Yeah.
And that's how you're going to learn a lot of these things because you're going to have a customer who's going to be like, "Can you change the background color of this one thing to this?" And that's not going to be an
And
option on
that's when you'll learn the
Squarespace, but
most
that's
too.
when that's
Yeah.
when you're going to go to whatever resources you can come up with. Google, AI, Slack, not Slack,
Slap. Slap.
Stack Overflow. Yeah, Slap.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
All right.
this is a process that you will get better with over time, both sales and actually
But
the
taking action
development
is the
process.
most important part.
And
I agree.
and
Yeah.
also future pacing yourself because like we mentioned,
Yeah.
it's really intimidating in the beginning. It's because
Yeah.
you're literally when you're starting out, you're literally the worst you will ever be in your entire life. Right now, you are
Yep.
the worst you will ever
Yeah.
be in your entire life. So of course it's going to be intimidating. But you
Yeah.
get a few of these under your belt, and if you're having a hard time doing it, just imagine, hey, well, once I get this first one done, how will I feel? Once I get 5 of them done, how will I feel? Once I get 10, 20, 50 done, how confident will I be about doing this? And just
Yeah.
imagine that, and then you can just start working your way there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to
Awesome.
wrap it up by saying just one thing, which is this. You may think you're alone, but you're actually in a group, right? You are here in our Facebook group and you have the power to use this to your advantage. So if you find a client and you're like, "I'm like shitting bricks because I just got a client and now I don't know what to do next," you have this opportunity to post in the group, "Hey, I got this client. Is anybody willing to help me or, provide some information for me, or I have this problem?" That's what this group is for. It's open and free. If
Yeah.
you want access to us and a community of really inspired,
Yeah.
dedicated, motivated web developers who are doing this, then you want to join the Web Dev Incubator. That's what that community is all about. We are really like fostering a powerful community of new web developers who are going out there, taking action every day and getting
Building awesome
results,
stuff.
right?
Building
Yeah, like
awesome projects.
it's
Getting
really
clients.
cool to
Yeah.
see what people do. And this is something that I talk to a lot of people about the Web Dev Incubator. I think one of the most valuable aspects of it is the community, and not just the community. Like there's a community here inside of Facebook, and that's amazing, right? But there's a little bit of difference inside the incubator, and that is number one, there's way more communication, right? For every one post you see in Facebook, there's probably 100 inside of our private Telegram group,
Oh God, yeah.
of and collaboration, right, between other members. And I forget what I was going to say for the second one.
But also
Uh,
everyone is invested. In
yeah,
Web Dev Incubator, it's not free. But
it's not. Yeah,
also, we don't accept everybody who applies. You actually need to sit down with us and do an action call to see if you're the right fit. So really, the only people who are in Web Dev Incubator are people who are motivated, who are willing to do the work, who know technology and are willing to learn it. And so really you get the best of the best and a group of people who what they're able to do in there is incredible.
yeah. And this is what I was going to say too. Is like in here you have a free group, and you're going to get answers from us and other community members. But we prioritize our time for the incubator. So if you join the incubator and you land a client and you're like, hey, I'm about to get on a discovery call, guess what? Danny and I and Randall have done plenty of discovery calls with our
Yeah.
incubator members, because we like to help you and facilitate that. And like you can ask the people in this group. I'm not sure if Randall LaPointe's on here, but we just did a call with him. And he's like, after that call, he's like, man, I'm so glad that you guys ran that call because I would not have known to ask any of those questions.
But you
And
learn it
that's
over
one of,
time. That's all it is.
yeah.
And it's all
And
just like experience.
that's one of the benefits, right? It's an investment into your future as a web developer. And that's what he's done. And that's what you can too. Invest in your future, because the reality is if you want this to be your thing, like I just want to say this one thing, right? If you're here because you're curious about it, you might as well just leave the group right now. This group is about dedicated, motivated people who want to become web developers, and that's their life mission from this point on. Like nothing else is important. If you're not in that spot, you either need to rethink what you're doing here or just leave, because the reality is you're not going to become a web developer without being fully committed to it. And
No
that's
way.
what the
Yeah.
incubator is about. It's about full commitment. It's about I'm going to make myself better and invest in myself. If you're not ready to invest in yourself, you're probably not in the right place. And there's plenty of other ways to make money out there. But web development is not the easiest thing in the world. It's a huge payoff. And if you love it, it's the best thing ever because you do what you love every day and you get paid to do it.
Yeah.
So really think about that. But if you are serious about becoming a web developer, the Web Dev Incubator is like nothing you will ever see anywhere else on the web or anywhere. It's not a boot camp. It's not anything like that. It's a community of developers who are growing together. And so if you want to be part of that, we're more than happy to have you inside if you're the right fit. And the way that you sort of take that next step is you book an action call with us. We give you some free mentoring. We provide some information for you about what's inside the Web Dev Incubator, how it works. And if you want to join, then that's your opportunity to join. So if you do want to set up an action call, there's two ways you can do it. You can comment below right now. Just comment Squarespace, all in caps, and we will reach out to you, or just ping one of us. Just reach out to us, like send us a little message. If you haven't already, friend us. We have a lot of friend requests all the time from community members, but if you're not our friend yet, you should, because you'll see more of our content if you do. But then, of course, you can just reach out to us and say, hey, I'd like to book an action call. And I'm actually going to drop the link in the description as well for the action call. So if you want, you can just like click right into there and schedule a call. Okay.
Awesome.
With that, thank you guys for tuning in for another day. Thank you, Randall and Danny. Thank you, everybody in the comments, for contributing. I think this was a great call. And if you are inside the Web Dev Incubator, we'll see you in about 15 minutes. Check the Telegram group for the link. Otherwise, enjoy your Saturday.